Hello, welcome, Willow Studio. What up, what up? Hey, welcome to Expand Understanding. We are just getting started here. We're rolling in off of Frank's show. Zach will be with us shortly. Frank Castle is just on here. Him and Paula Milo, two people that I love dearly in this world, over in New York. They are, Frank is a New York, in the Bronx, an ayahuasca neo shaman over there. So a lot of his story started 5 years ago, I believe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when he first encountered ayahuasca and changed his life. So he's got a weekly show that's on his YouTube channel, Frank Castle Fearless, that you can listen to over there and get to know him and what he's all about because we're all about everything they're about because they're amazing people and learning to be good people because everybody gets there through our own roads. Oh, I just realized my video quality is probably really shoddy because let me switch that real quick. It's super low. Let's try this. Is that better? You can see the grease on my face a lot clearer now. Better anyway. Nice. Let's see. Hello. So good to see you, Aaron. Good to see you, Willow. Lexi Blue. Hey, good to see you. So welcome to Expand Understanding. Who knows what we're going to talk about tonight? We do have upcoming a couple things actually. I've been doing a cooking show with my sister. Hi, Lisa. Much love to you as well. I've been doing a cooking show helping my sister. She's been doing Mouthful from Mandy. And we've done two videos today already. They're little shorts that we did leading into where we're going to do another one after the show, making a vegetable stew. So she loves cooking, and it's really actually people seem to really engage in the chat, which is great. I know we have a lot of cookers in the chat, and Patty, and I think Brittany, and are people that really enjoy the show, and who else? And Jasmine. And so it's cool because the ones today, I think we did one live this morning here. And I was actually that was more me talking about juicing enemas and supplements, and while showing the juicer and juicing some celery juice, carrot juice, and then talking about some other things, ionic minerals, distilled water. I think it packed a lot and just kind of ran juice. Anyway, why don't we just film and then we can take the juice, the water. We had the celery and stuff soaking in the distilled ionized water, ionic mineral water with and then we're gonna take that as a base or whatever for the vegetable soup tonight. And so with the second video was at the store, her picking out, hey Jasmine. The second video we just uploaded a few hours ago was her picking out produce at the store. And so I was filming her and just what she's picking out for the stew based on what was available or what looked good and different things to do with that. And so we'll finish the one live tonight, and we'll probably watch those two in the video and then interact live as she does the last part. So that's been a lot of fun. And so that's something that is a new dynamic just on the show, another flavor of expanding our understanding because there's people in the world like my sister that she loves to cook, man. She loves food, she loves to cook, she loves to cook for people. Like it's just natural. She's just doing really well in the show because she really enjoys that. Man, people really enjoy different niches of things in life, and cooking is like foundational, whether you're, single like me. I'm learning a ton just being on my own and learning from my sister, and like I had no idea about a lot of this stuff, so I can eat the food also, but I'm learning a lot. Let's see. Is anyone tripping tonight? It's always a good question. See, another flavor. Yeah, from Patty's is another flavor. Yeah, and that's always what is the quote? Well, a family that trips together stays together. So that's additional layers, added layers of perception are always welcome here. We love to expand our understanding and discuss things that increase our interconnection to ourselves and to each other. So that show's coming up also on, so I'll be later tonight, another episode of Mouthful from Mandy. And then on Monday, we have Brie Larson. I think she's been on the show at least twice, I think twice on the show already. So she's coming back on Monday to chat with us about everything going on in her reality, and she'll be back Monday. We had Adam on last night. Adam is just a dude that Zach met. I forgot where they met, just ran into him. They started talking about all the stuff, and we're like, hey. And then he ended up coming back to Zach's place a couple days later or something. And they did a show there. We did a show together a couple weeks back, and then he came back on, called in last night, and that was a fun show too. Let's see. Jasmine says, I was trying to come up with a cheesy joke about tripping, but nothing clever came. Oh, well. Speaking of Jasmine, I have something Jasmine said earlier I thought was very interesting, and I'll need to ask Zach when he comes in because this is why I thought Zach would have more information on this dynamic than I did, but maybe people in the chat can help as well. So she sent me a video of a guy talking about it. She sent me an hour-long video, and I started to watch it in like an hour. I'm like, I don't got time for this right now. Jasmine That's what I say. I said, what did he say in there that stuck out to you? Right? Help me break it down. Like, what? Obviously, this, you meant to send it to me, so I value that. Like, okay, what stuck out to you? Break it down for me. And let's see. He did. Oh, well, he did say a lot of things that were all pretty resonate to me. Basically, he's breaking down how we can distinguish false light and teachings and go within ourselves. He breaks down the meaning of the flower of life, which is actually called the daisy of death, and the true flower of life is the life lotus, the life lotus, or the lotus flower, I believe. I think because it has a source in the middle, and its pattern connects to it completely, unlike the flower of life that we usually see. Sort of looks like the Metatron symbolism. Also, being weary of following light workers, channeling. Okay. The main things, so there are things there was really good, Jasmine. But that part, and what's more, the Daisy of Death. I'm trying to remember where I've seen that. And I think so that's in reference to the traditional circle of light. Well, all right, we got time. We got a multimedia studio here. Let's open up a new tab and take a look at this because I think this is a very interesting conversation to expand our understanding. So let's go share screen. Let's see. Getting there, guys. Hold up. Tab. Wonderful. Let's see. Daisy of Death, Flower of Life. Why did that not type right? Daisy of Death, Flower of Life. Okay, let's see what this guy says. All right, how's this look for you guys? StreamYard. Okay, yeah, you get to see. Okay, so the perpetual life source code, Lotus of Life. Okay, great. And then the Metatronic Flower of Life, aka is it first one? Perfect. Look at this one. They scratched all over it. All right, so interesting. So okay, that makes more sense. I actually visually seen it. I definitely know the difference and seen the difference. The one on the left here, the perpetual life source code. This I think more is what we've talked about too with Dan Winter, Dan Winter's science that he's been doing, I think, for 40 plus years, plasma science and heart compression ratio in the heart, and the rose shape and the Fibonacci recursive sequence or infinitely recursive golden ratio twisting and vortexing of the heart and the shape and the geometric shape of the heart. So the electromagnetic fields in our body. So it's almost like this one's 3D, or maybe you could say 4D, right? But this is, I don't know, 5D or 6D. If we want to put those things on it, it's more. It seems when we have to condescend from a higher density or dimension to a lower, or let's do dimension, the like lines on a paper, right? It's all about adding additional layers, but you can only see, I think Zach, we've talked about this before, I believe you can only see or conceive of or perceive of into one dimension in the future, like that rationally. I think, okay, so on a piece of paper, you draw a line and then you draw a line up. So you have what, one, two, standing on that paper if you're also flat on that paper, and then a line straight at you. That's 3 dimensions. And then fourth, I guess, would be able to stand in the center of that point and being able to walk maybe out from all 3. So you can conceive of that, but then what's fifth? Like what's the 5th dimension? And I don't know. That's just an interesting concept. But I definitely feel this thanks for listening to me rattle on here my own thoughts based on what I'm seeing and thinking. So the Medtronic though definitely looks more simplified, oversimplified to reduce it down. So I think the more we move towards what we would consider organic, or the highest level of technology that we know of in the universe, which seems to me these DNA skin suits that we reside in the heart, in the body, in the systems, lymphatic system, the glymphatic system, myofascial system. I mean, do you know you have myofascial tissue that connects from your big toes all the way up to your tongue? Like crazy. Tensegrity and understanding our relation to gravity and the actual differences in the spacing of the nervous center ganglion that reside along our nervous system that are also correlated to the chakras. So there's a lot of interesting and amazing interconnected tech. And Zach is here with us now. Hi, Zach.
My mic's not turned on. Hi.
There it is.
It's fixing it.
Hello. How you doing, Zach?
I am just fine. How are
Fantastic.
you?
I'm doing all right. Talking about this, I was going to ask you about this. Have you been able to listen while I've been rambling on here?
No, I was still AFK until 2 seconds ago.
Okay,
So,
cool. So this, tell me more about this. So Jasmine wrote a comment. She sent me a video and I just did some rambling out, but I'm curious on your understanding of it and take. Um, she said in this, he breaks down the meaning of the flower of life, which is actually called the daisy of death, and the true flower of life is in the life lotus because it has a source in the middle and its pattern connects to it completely, unlike the flower of life that we usually see. Sort of looks like Metatron symbolism. So I
Do
looked it
you
up.
do
This is
you
the
know the
first thing that
person
showed
who
up.
runs the website from the image you're looking at? Did
No,
he? Oh, I've actually
genuine
worked
healing.
with her. Yeah,
Oh, okay. No, I had no idea. That's synchronistic.
yeah. No, she's all about the Daisy of Death thing. So,
So tell
she
me about
actually
it.
kind
I
of
didn't really
like
know about it.
she doesn't really know about it a lot. She has like she's very intuitive, extremely intuitive. Actually, if you go on her website, there's a session or around on her social media. There's a session of a healing session that she actually did on me. That's
No shit.
it's pretty intense, dude. It's not your standard kinds of healing sessions, that's for sure. Nevertheless, yeah. Um, I don't know that I entirely agree with the left image being the better one. I'm trying to find an image that would actually.
Yeah, throw it out there.
I've seen
Yeah,
it
it says
around before, but
it
really,
doesn't make that.
in a certain way, it's kind of the Metatronic one. So I'm current. I should say that I'm currently kind of exploring this in a very intuitive way. So if I talk about it, this stuff's probably going to be kind of all over the map.
Yeah, cool.
Um,
Yeah, I just gave off a bunch of ramblings too, because I was kind of processing through certain thoughts or overlapping connections.
so for me, the flower of life is basically a curved representation of a cube. And so while we are led to believe that this would be kind of like the spherical balance, the circular balance to the square, which is like what we really associate Metatron with, the square or the cube in the next dimensionality. I really like. I don't think. I think a lot of people think of it as though that like the rounded format of it is the more natural one, whereas like Metatron's cube, which is like well literally just like a fucking cube, although it is
Right.
made of there will be like circles stacked and then they, whatever. But like I think people feel that the flower of life is something different and like it's this kind of like symbol that's providing some doorway out of the matrix or whatever. And I do not believe that that is the case at all. I think it is basically just the other half of the matrix where you have this reality is made up of angles and curves, and basically the spheres bound the angles or the squares, you could say, or the cubes, I guess, if we're saying spheres. And so to understand both sides of reality or that kind of duality, which is more like an in out duality rather than like a left right or up down, it's a different dimensionality of the duality. One half of reality would be the angular side of it, basically. Well, the way that I look about this is possibility, right? Possibility meaning that within the bounds of the environment that you're in, it is actually something that could happen. Whereas outside of that, the other side of reality would be potential, which is everything that could happen that does not take into account what the bounds of the reality or environment would allow, but rather anything that could possibly ever happen. And possible is wrong word right there. Anything that could ever potentially happen. Right? So when we have this meeting of basically potential and possibility, we get an established reality. It has a top end and a bottom end. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
we live in the space in between that. I believe that functionally the cube and the sphere provide us with a top end and a bottom end. But what's actually significantly more interesting than both of those is that they actually both emerge from a singular point that sits at the center and they both follow the exact same rules in doing so. Then this is the entire reason why you can basically map any type of cube or other angular structure. You can map that same thing with phi is because they're both the spheres and the angular structures both have to follow the same rule because on another dimensionality beyond that, they're actually being compressed to a specific point, regardless of what their shape is or how you want to perceive it. It doesn't matter. It's going from something to a very infinitesimal thing. You could literally say non-existent thing, but it's really just collapsing
It's,
entirely.
what's interesting how you draw them though, like what the one on the right, you wouldn't start from the center. You'd start making a circle anywhere. Then you'd make a circle, I think that crosses the circle. I don't know, however that works. But the point is, I don't think you start in a center point and you connect circles, and eventually that center point is made. Excuse me. Once you've made enough overlapping circles, I think, right. Whereas the left one, you
The
always start
easiest
in the
way to do
center
it is
and
actually
arc out.
start with three straight lines. Basically make a what would be understood as kind
Like
of
a
the key
Y.
of Chiron, but
Hmm.
rather realistically just a hexagram, modeled from the inside sticks.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
one
Yeah.
straight and then two sitting like this. And once
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have that right there, then you have basically all the points that you need in order to be able to just like
Gotcha.
place your compass and create
Interesting.
a circle. And if you create circles at the right places on all of those, it will create the other circles that you
So
haven't already mapped out.
So where would you take? So it's interesting. So in that dynamic, you have a circle made of you have three straight lines that could be like triangle or triangulate. Then those that they can create a perfect circle around those three because you have a triangulation to do that. But then the first platonic solid is a tetrahedron. Like where does that
Uh,
come into play? Like how does that cross over from this geometry here if it does at all?
I mean, you can map a tetrahedron right over the top of
Oh yeah, I know
this
you can
quite
do it all
easily.
all of them on there, but I'm thinking for the emergence of because they talk about the tetrahedron being the most simplest and the first emergence or the first platonic solid for the reason that it's the simplest, equally sided, equally angled object, I believe. Right?
Sure, one and two are not capable of actually even accomplishing this thing. What you're talking about doing there at some type of three-pointed object is the first place that we would get an opportunity for true three dimensions, right? Because when we're talking
Yeah.
about these kinds of dimensions, realize one and two are a point and a line. It's not like one side and two sides. It's a point and then a line. So you have like a
Right.
point and then a side. And then when you put sides together, now you're dealing with this three or what could kind of be third dimension. But if we're looking at it that way, realize then what we're used to seeing as third dimension, like a cube or something that has depth to it. That's
Yeah.
actually fourth dimension when you're looking at it that way. But realize what we've really done here is started from zero. The point is zero, but it's the first thing that you could notice. The line is one, but it's the second thing that you could notice. You know what I mean? So when
Yeah.
we're saying that, when we're saying like it's a 3D object, it's actually a 4D object, but it's one, two, three. We're not including the zeroth dimension, which would be a
Mm.
point. So well, I don't know
Or-
why we did that tangent.
I don't
Um,
know. It's interesting. Well, that really said, or Patty said, Metatronic has always felt like a maze to me.
Yeah, I mean, maze is very much so like maze is related to math and mob, right? By the first two letters. It's very much so. This is this angular structure when you're talking about a maze. So realize the other word for a maze is a labyrinth, and of course it starts with an L because they put the angle right at the beginning of it. So it is very much so an angled structure. It's actually not. Well, it's not typical of a labyrinth or a maze to be made with rounded walls, and it's
Eh,
actually like a, well, kind of a step up in your labyrinth creation to start using basically spirals and shit like that.
no
But
doubt.
if you go too crazy down that line, you can make impossible labyrinths where you basically include stuff like Penrose steps and other various types of what you could basically call optical anomalies that are just a byproduct of the way that you lay out geometry. So, if you lay out angular geometry over spirals, it's very easy to create an optical illusion where you can't tell whether that's a pathway up or a pathway down. And if you create mazes with these kinds of steps inside of them, the steps become almost, or the mazes become almost impossible to solve. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I was saying that. Well, I'm trying to pull it up here. That one will work. I was saying, but right before he popped on too, and I was doing all my own just ramblings based on just my own. Because it's funny we presented it that way. Because I don't know. I feel like I've heard this before, but I didn't know what it was in my mind until I pulled up the image. So I just kind of started processing it. And one of the things that I saw was, or made that comparison to, reminded me of, was this one or something like this. But the thin winter material, right, of the actual organic one or the actual flower, lotus of life, or whatever it is, the actual vortexing spiral
hmm
being the more, I say organic, but a
And
more like, I guess, progressed
I would
technology
say
where
that
more
when we're
dimensions to
talking
it.
about Dan's, we're talking about the thing beyond it. He talks about how the pinch gets created. So Dan Winter is
Yeah.
beyond all of this stuff. That the right there,
Right.
59 best new science.
This one.
Up one.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
thing
yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
Right.
That is what I think the flower of life should actually look like. It's a
Cool. There we go.
vortex.
That's what I mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
His
a
stuff. That's what I
vortex
mean.
made
Yeah, yeah.
out of
Get into.
circles. You know what I mean? Like you just
Perfect.
take
Yep.
circles and you keep on moving them just a little bit around. You could create a very set amount, and you just always move it that many degrees, and then you would create that. So you're literally just
Oh.
rotating the circle about a point. You know what I mean? And that
Yeah.
I think that's an actual freeing structure right there. The daisy of death and its inverse that we like to call the flower of life. Both of these are technically, if we're gonna just be very straightforward with it, they're Metatronic bullshit matrix traps. Living with that belief of reality will keep you in a limited dimensionality that will never understand yourself as the all. And so I do not agree with those at all. It's really unfortunate too because I actually have a great Shipibo tapestry that has a flower of life on it. It's the Metatronic flower of life, and like I don't really actually even want to have it up in my house at all anymore
Mm.
personally. So
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Like going through phases and layers of understanding and connecting with different energies, or like because there's the definitely the original system there, the flattened out, more Metatronic dynamic, connecting to the general people's getting their feet in the water with spirituality, chakras, seven chakras, like the structure and like there's truth in that, but like there's
hmm
greater truths. There's additional layers of understanding, and so even that's why I guess I use the symbol side of the metaphor based in science, and as much as we know is true about bodies
yeah.
and DNA skin suit technology. I don't know. It seems like a malleable enough framework to keep upgrading our level of what we are willing to or want to interact with on those layers of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sold on this one right here at the moment for
Yeah,
sure,
that's
especially
yep.
because of like what this guy says right there. He's like, this is the 24-digit recurring compressed Fibonacci sequence on a torus skin. The nines are highlighted and create approximate phi spiraling arms. This is the motherfucking way that your galaxy is created. The middle of
Dude.
that bitch right there is a supermassive black hole.
Yeah,
100,000%, and our
yeah.
entire
Come
galaxy
on.
appears to be expanding, but is in fact contracting into a black hole, and we just don't know it yet. But as they said well, we do know it. The right people do. The Book of Amos, non-canonical text, clearly states that the day of your Lord will be a day of darkness, and I believe it is at the point when all of that actually collapses. Yeah, but I don't know
Dude,
that that ever happens. This could be a perpetual motion device.
It's
So
funny. Yeah, and that's a whole other deal that's worth going into at some time with somebody who knows that really knows the science on it. Because I've seen enough, but not enough to talk about it at length. Anyhow, so this nines are my thing, man. Nines and sixes, really. Because if you flip that around, those are also sixes,
yeah,
and there's
just
that infinite,
look at the other side of the Taurus.
right, man. And so I see those everywhere. I have for really coming up on 2 years. Like it's when it really started. Like 99, 9918 because I was 999. That's
hmm
really leading up into that. That was super significant. I believe I was down in California, in the water, the Pacific coast, and it dawned on me. I knew kind of the astrology a little bit of the timing, but it didn't like when I just happened to be there. I looked, and it was the full moon. I think it was full moon or new moon, whatever is possible, and then the sun in the sky at the same time, right on the equinox or whatever it was, or
hmm
one of the things, yeah, something like that. No, 99. That wouldn't be equinox. It was something. It was some significant astrological date or whatever. But it was the only time that would happen that
Yeah,
month. And
it's funny. In modern times, there's been an emergence where every single day where the numbers line up, so 1 1, 2 2, 3 3, 4 4, 5 5, every single one of these has become basically like a celebratable occult holiday, just simply
right,
because people like repeating numbers now. It's kind of interesting. I mean, they've made some
right.
really grandiose connections with some of them, and maybe they're accurate. Like it is interesting when numbers line up. I'll give them that. You know what I mean? But going back into history, we're kind of Valentine's Daying here, if you know what I mean.
Mm,
Meaning that like
yeah.
Valentine's Day isn't really observing anything. We just decided to start celebrating on that day. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And
mm,
so like well, and that's fine. Like
yeah.
I'm all for I think all we ever actually do is pay reverence to concepts. We just sometimes call them gods or something. So nevertheless, like
Oh, wait, Willow, will you write that down? Please get that. Write that down. I missed it, but we so please pay reverence to concepts. We sometimes call them gods.
yeah.
Oh man, please write that down. Continue.
So, nevertheless, it's completely fine to make up your own holidays and shit like that, or observations of something. Like, I mean, I don't think there's any actual problem with that, but I do think there's a problem with doing something and then pretending that you're not doing that. So, if we're acting like we're not doing that with these things, well, we might be sending ourselves adrift. You know what I mean? And that's not really a
Yeah.
fair thing to do to yourself. You know, it's great to navigate and be fucking creative with your navigation and not be held back by the structures of how everybody else is always navigated. But it's also a big problem to navigate yourself off into the fucking fog and not pay any attention to what direction you went. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah.
That's how you get fucking lost. So it's probably not a good look.
Yeah. What would be an example of that?
I mean, literally what I just said. Get yourself out on a boat and then
Right.
get it nice and foggy and start navigating off of it into the darkness and into the fog without charting your vector. When you end up
Yeah.
getting way
Yeah.
enough
Yeah.
out there, you'll recognize you got no fucking idea where you are, and you actually aren't even entirely sure which direction to turn your boat to get back to where you want to go.
So practically
So,
for people though, like creating a vision for your life, like where you want to go, a reason to pursue something or to give you drive or purpose, like a vector. I mean, that's what you mean. I'm
no, I'm
assuming
saying
that's
it's
what
it's
you're.
fine for you to believe anything that you want to believe. Just remember that you chose to believe those things, right? Not that
Yeah.
they're like they're not now some fucking unequivocal truth in reality. Like a lot of people believe that the sun is hot. We don't fucking know that the sun is hot. We have not been to the sun and
Yeah.
measured its hotness. That's not a thing that we know. But we believe the sun is hot and people treat it like it's a truth. And if you treat that like it's
Yep.
a truth and you start trying to understand space and go, okay, well, there's all these stars all over the place and they're all really, really hot, and we know that, well, you're never going to get to any type of worthwhile conclusions because part of your hypothesis was based off of false information or at least
Right.
unproven information. You know, you don't know whether that's true. And if you don't know whether something's true, you can't buy into it as truth unless you're trying to mislead yourself.
And if that's new
So,
information to you, Zach is referring to the electric universe theory, which is very much worth looking into. They have a YouTube channel. They have a whole bunch of scientists and astronomers and different people that break all this stuff down really, really well. It makes the universe make way more sense. We don't need all this 97% dark matter. It's all explainable. Electric universe.
yeah, it's definitely not dark matter, dark energy, or black holes. Like, if you believe in those things, you haven't done very much research, honestly. Astrophysics doesn't even buy into those things at this point in time. You know, the concept of the black hole and the gray hole pretty much died with Stephen Hawking, and you likely will never actually see any additional progression on it
So, how would
whatsoever
you,
because he was about the only dude looking
for
at it.
people listening that may not know the differentiation, explain what a black hole actually is then, and compare it to what is actually true.
The belief of black holes is that, as it currently stands, is that it is a place that is consuming all matter and then still basically leaving it here, creating an extremely massive point that doesn't actually have any kind of matter in it anymore. And really, this whole thing is basically like well, it's just a way to make up an answer, right? Like we don't know that they do that. We don't have actually any data that shows that they do that. In fact, the people who mostly studied this, Stephen Hawking being kind of the front end on that, his own belief of them changed from being like, oh, they're black holes to like, oh, we got maybe let's call them like a gray hole, or maybe there's white holes and there's black holes, or he's completely undecided on what is actually going on with these things, and we don't really know is at the end of the day. We don't really know. But the concept as postulated of a black hole doesn't really seem to have any actual support for it, other than like, it's a hypothesis. But that hypothesis, of course, like then needs proof and shit to be something actually real, and it does not have that proof. Realize black holes are entirely hypothetical. Dark energy is entirely hypothetical. Dark matter entirely hypothetical. We've never actually found anything that leads us to believe like yes, we have some dark matter here, we have some dark energy here, we have situations where we suppose that things are supposed to be one way, they are not that way. All of the things that we know about and that we can test don't provide us with a reason to believe that thing of why things are that way. So in an attempt to get basically the theoretical equations to wash about those things that we're looking at, we put basically variables into there, like a dark matter. And we say, okay, if we had something that was like this, would it make sense? And in cases like dark matter, dark energy, black holes, there is some question that has been answered that if we had something that was doing this, it would do that. But we don't have any proof that we have something that's doing that. That's the problem with all of those. You know?
Yeah.
So you can't see a black hole. Just like everybody said, likes to think like, oh, well, there's a black hole at the center of our galaxy. There's black holes out in space. Show me one. I mean, by nature of what a black
Have
hole
you seen?
is supposed to be, that would be impossible. Light cannot escape a black hole. That means it can't reflect back to you. That means it's impossible to see. It would be seen by the fact it's negative space, the fact that nothing else was able to hold that space. You know what I mean? That would be the only way to see it. Would be to not see it.
Okay, hold up, yo. So have you seen? I know you haven't seen a lot of movies. So
Interstellar.
yeah, I'm pulling up.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Interstellar.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. We'll pull up for people links. I'm just gonna pull up a GIF, so it's not gonna do any copyright shit. If we get to play.
Or
Hello.
the GIF of where they see the black hole.
Yeah, just the
Is that what you're
animation,
talking
so you
about?
can visualize and break it down, either shit on it or
And
why is more
well,
accurate.
we should
That's a good
recognize
example.
that this, isn't necessarily even this is a artist representation of a theoretical
Yeah,
concept. We haven't seen a black hole. What we're seeing right there is they're basically taking the idea of a planet or other large body of matter that generates gravity, and they are applying to that, like, if you were to just put a planet in the middle of that thing or a star, right? Then the
yeah,
phenomena that you're seeing inside of interstellar happens is widely known inside of astrophysics as gravitational lensing, and we have actually used it to peer deeper into the universe than our current things would allow us to be able to do, because we point the telescope at basically the edge of a very massive object, and because that massive object is, as well, if we're talking relativistic science, which is the way that this is all explained most of the time right now, as a
yeah.
byproduct of all that matter being compressed there, it causes the light to bend around it. So what is actually beyond that thing is being bent through functionally its atmosphere, its magnetosphere, its ionosphere, various different theories for this. But the idea is that that thing is actually attracting all of it and bending it. So you're getting some type of lensing that's happening around the edge of a massive object. So if you look at the edge of the massive object, you can actually see what is much more distant than the massive object being lensed around the outside of the object. For this representation of a black hole, we're basically taking the idea of functionally what is an accretion disk, not no different than basically the way that the rings of Saturn are created, and we're generating that with light. Then we're basically removing. We can literally do what you're looking at here with Saturn. What we pretty much have is a picture of Saturn with Saturn taken out of the picture. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can we can utilize
no doubt.
gravitational lensing off of Saturn. Saturn does have an accretion disk that's holding things around its equator. That is the ring that we see around it. This is functionally the exact same thing, only it's presenting all of that with what is basically supposed to be represented light rather than being actual matter that's
Yeah.
there. And so this is basically just an artistic representation of a black hole. All this white imagery around it that makes it really look profound. You would not see any of that. Like
Yeah.
there would be none of that if a black hole functioned the way that they are postulated theoretically.
Oh, okay. So this,
It would be an utter blackness. You wouldn't be able to tell it was there. And as you got closer
gotcha.
to it, it wouldn't look like it like got closer. You
Yeah.
would just like you would keep moving, but you wouldn't actually move because functionally you'd be undergoing was understood as spaghettification. Once you
Yeah.
if black holes work the way that they do, once you reach basically the event horizon of one and tried to travel any closer to it, you would perceive yourself getting closer, but there would be no way for anything beyond you to perceive yourself doing any kind of moving except for just stretching out because basically time has stopped at the event horizon of it. So if you're traveling farther, you're just like you would just be like a dragging of yourself, but you're not actually moving anymore because movement happens over time and time stopped at the event horizon of a black hole. So,
So what do you think that it actually looks like, or what is actually at the center of our galaxy?
an infinitesimal point. and it doesn't look
Really?
like anything
Cool.
because it's way too small for you to see.
Really? That's really what you think?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, cool.
It's
I've
the
never really thought
unity.
that far. I've
It's
never
the
followed the science
singularity.
down that far.
It's it's the singularity. It's
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah,
We think
that
like
makes
something
sense.
came forth from nothing, and we think that's very difficult. But when we come to realize that the center of everything is actually a tiny little bubble of nothing, it will seem very easy that that something came forward from nothing. Because
And
something
that's
didn't come
where,
forward from nothing. Something already was something. It was perceived as nothing because it kept all of that inside. And then in a dimensionality, it decided to project that out. And voila, you have a reality to live in now in a life. So
so,
realistically, I think actually this reality is an infinitesimal bubble of everything turned inside out. And
so
that's why
kind
all
of,
the mirroring and everything's backwards and fucking
dude. I'm telling you, I made some major connections when when I was in the flat Earth stuff. When I mean in it, like I thoroughly took it on as a perspective and
yep.
tested a lot of shit, and I find it very interesting still to this day. The laser test people do, many people, very well done, full length films, like whatever the stuff that looks seems pretty legit if they're going to some kind of hoax or whatever, where they go with the NASA numbers for the curvature of the Earth. The light should be dropping, 50 feet or whatever at
Hmm.
this distance, and it's not. It's dropping maybe an inch or two at most, or whatever, and they're going like way beyond what light should be able based on refraction and whatever. And I've seen a lot of the different, just a lot of things that made it very interesting. And then they
Sure.
made esoteric connections. They're connecting it to the body. And one of the things they did
I
was
think
the
it's
dome
important
Earth.
to note with this that, NASA is a fucking shill. Like
Right, well, hold on.
NASA's not
The,
real. NASA's not doing real science. NASA is a way to put your tax dollars towards stuff you wouldn't be okay with by making it
for sure.
supposedly go towards stuff that you don't understand. And we have many ways of doing this. I mean, military defense has this all over inside of it. The primary like weird research in the world is done by the United States Navy, and I mean, unless you're like kind of
Yep.
like China or something, United States Navy tests all kinds of fucking crazy shit that like if they're even halfway accurate with even half of that, NASA's fucking blowing smoke, dude. Like
Yeah.
huge amounts of smoke. So what we should know about reality is that we know next to fucking nothing about it.
Mm.
We see a lot of functions on our own level. There's lots of reasons to presume why they would carry over to other things, but no good classical physicist makes hypothesis before they do any observation.
Right.
So right now there's all kinds of stuff inside of science
So,
that
okay,
is
hold
this
on.
is where we draw the real differentiation between modern physics and classic physics.
Do it. All
Classic
right, do it.
physics does it a completely different way. It observes things and then records that data and then potentially hypothesizes. Doesn't necessarily do that. Whereas modern science and modern physics, their actual first step inside of their experimental process is to make a hypothesis, and that is fundamentally flawed way to do science. So I don't know where they think they're going to get with that, but I know that they get, well, as Nikola Tesla said, the scientists of today wander off out through equation after equation, never coming to anything of any real tangible result. And that's what they do.
Mm,
So,
yeah,
well,
agreed.
I mean,
Applied
if you take the
physics.
time to look at shit that's been foiled over the last fucking 20 years, man, you might get a completely different scope of reality real quick if right now
Really?
you think that anything that science has been selling you for the last 20 years was even remotely accurate because
Yeah,
there's been
we
some
went through that.
crazy
Remember,
shit.
we went through that earlier on the episodes, all the Wilhelm Reich stuff. The Oregon energy boxes that were healing people, and then the FDA came in and shut them all down, burned a lot of his research and shit.
Yeah,
A
and
lot
I
of
mean,
stuff.
there's like a million different
Rife
things like that
technology,
too.
yeah, tons. And like there was a website I was following for a long time. They were tracking investigative journalists tracking holistic medicine people that for their careers, and they would just die in a car crash or
Oh
whatever,
yeah,
but they try to move to another country. I mean, it's like 200 of them. They had listed long obituaries, linking resources, showing
yep,
really suspicious shit. What they were discovering, what they like, even just Gerson therapy that's banned in this country, but you can go to Mexico to do it. Like, watch
yeah.
the documentary. I bring it up a lot, man. But it's true.
I
There's just
was
so much
all up
information out
on
there.
that fucking shit at one point in time, man. That was like my
Uh-huh.
primary fucking jam
By
was
at one point, it was mine too. I've been like trying to draw into the hard drive here, like when I was
yeah.
super into that stuff.
I think there's something beyond all of those guys. I think all those guys like they found something transcendental to the system that we were in, but they
Yep.
didn't actually transcend the system. And
Mm,
I think there is actually a transcension to the system that is
cool.
available there, but I
Yeah.
don't I think it requires a lot more management of a person's we'll just say mind, even though I think it's much more than that. than a standard individual is actually even capable of putting in. It requires training from our current default state in order to be there. I think this will be the natural state of a very, very long time in the future, but it does not appear to me that it is currently the natural state of things. So, anyways, I mean, this a lot of this comes from the Monroe stuff too. Like all the Rife machines, orgone, all great. Like all of this stuff seems to have really cool results. Seems to be very effective. I've worked with basically all of it. I have friends who own Rife machines that I've used. I've fucking done all this stuff, all that stuff. I love it. I think it's
Are
all
you
great.
familiar
But with
on the
Monroe technology, at the farthest end of it, literally all this shit collapses into the same thing. It's just some ritual that you do to build confidence that your mind can create reality. And once
yeah
you've built that kind of confidence and you can put the actual, the full focus of your mind into generating a reality, there's a lot of rules about reality that you come to find are actually rules, not laws, meaning that as long as no one's watching, the rules can't be enforced. Laws enforce themselves. They do not need enforcement, but rules require
natural law.
enforcement in order to be held. So you find that a lot of things that we think are laws in reality are actually just rules. And, rules, well, I mean, rules are good for establishing positions, but sometimes it's good to, like, leave that position for some reason. So, ancient text talks about this a lot. You know I love the word abzu. Well, inside of the
Mm.
Sumerian text, one of the most confusing things. Okay, so the Sumerian kingship is they have people on this list that live for like 35,000 years. And that's what their text says. And right next to their text is also saying stuff like, like we established in many ways the alphabet from these same people. They have grain registers, like how much, this dude owes this dude fucking 2,000 shekels or whatever the fucking, all this kinds of stuff. And then right with that, they also have a documentation of their previous kings. But the little weird thing about that is that, like, it's pretty standard for these kings to live tens of thousands of years. What does that mean? Are we talking about actual people? Are we talking about just like cities? I don't know. But they say that the kingship is located at some specific city, but then they give a name for the kingship as well. So that's in a certain way kind of insinuating that the kingship is there's someone who resides there that lives for this period of time. And you start digging into like what the fuck are they talking? How would that even be possible? Well, inside of their storylines, supposedly these guys are submerging themselves in the Abzu, and that's basically curing that. It's providing them with functionally eternal life. They actually don't die until they basically choose to stop doing this.
Mm.
So there's obviously a lot of questions as to, well, what the fuck is that?
Have
You know
you
what
have you
I
read the
mean?
Emerald Tablets of Thoth?
Oh yeah.
So does that correlate with that? The one I'm trying to remember what he would have named it in there, but it's above the councils and like the numbers and whatever. There's a different force or something. I thought I was referring to. Is there a correlation there?
You're talking when he's ascended as Lord of the Cycles, but he's still in some position where something is talking to him, basically,
Yeah.
and telling him that
Yes, I
now
think
he can
so.
do whatever he wants.
Something like that. Yeah.
I,
Is
I
that
mean, I
correlate?
would personally, in my own mindset of this, realize like this Abzu Tiamat stuff, like they're kind of like proper nouns placed inside of people's stories. You know what I mean? And so inside of the original Sumerian stuff, Abzu is a god. Like he's an actual identity
Mm.
and does a thing. But then they seem to use this word in other ways where they talk about like this absu thing and like people putting themselves inside of it, right? Which obviously then makes it well, it's not a guy, is it? Maybe it
Right.
is. I don't know. You know.
People are realms. People are realms and things. I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot more going on, but yeah. Just on a
So,
reference, ancient scripture reference on that, when you compare the Bible with the Bible, it's how they interpret it. That Hades is a realm and a person. It's their things. It's
right.
both. Like we're much more expansive beings. Even consciously, we can connect to and connect with each other. There are realms within us that are very, very real beyond just the 3D person that's here. All right, keep going.
Yeah, I don't I is there a direct crossover? I'm not sure. They're really not the same storyline. Realize Thoth the Atlantean. This is an Atlantean storyline. The Abzu thing is Sumerian. If these are actually like located where people reference them to be located. These things are thousands of miles away from each other. You know, Atlantis would be basically off the coast of Europe or off the coast of the Strait of Gibraltar, give or take. And
Mhm.
the Sumeria was in Mesopotamia, so basically like modern day Iraq. And so these would be, you know, other opposite sides of the Mediterranean. Is there any crossover in the story? I don't know. Who knows? Um,
Just your own thoughts and connections on that. But I'm gonna this guy. Unless you want me to move on, chat about this guy. Have
sure.
you familiar
What do you
with?
want to say about him?
Okay, are you familiar with Ken Rolla at all? Have you ever heard about him?
Nope.
Okay, so I followed him for a lot of years. He also has a lot of, let's just say, resources. But he makes orgone devices, scalar tech devices, and I think Jasmine brought up in the comments. There are several people that make them, but this guy also makes. Oh, good. So I have a bunch of stuff on here, but I think they do. It's just recipes, but they have orgone pyramids and the cloud busters because that is
Mm-hmm.
actual other technology that was. There's a let's see, what was it gotten into? I haven't been on here in like a year and a half to read at their website. And I always look at things mobily. It's weird looking at the computer. I noticed that when I was down there with you, the most time, it looks like most of the time or a lot of time, you look at things on the PC, right? Versus your phone.
I mean, if I'm around my PC, I'm gonna use my PC.
Yeah,
It's
that's,
the
yeah, I don't
processing
have a
power of
PC.
25 phones.
It's
So
like everything is on, yeah, so everything's on my phone. I'm just not used to desktop. Anyway, she's got a lot of videos talking about a lot of different things, but a lot of orgone device questions, answering people's smart meters, um, a lot of EMF, understanding EMF technology. I forgot what his credentials and stuff are, but he's been doing this for a lot of years
mhm.
and studying all this stuff and the health dynamics. And he talks in the technology of scalar technology and being able
Small technical difficulties.
to
You better
from
know.
years fasting, EMF protection. So,
You cut out
yeah,
for a second.
let's see. Oh, am I here now?
Yeah.
Huh.
It should be
Oh, it's,
noted that to Dan Winter's way of thinking, the word scalar is a bad word.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah,
So is he just talking
Dan
about
Winter's pretty
compression wave?
vehemently against the idea. Well, it's vehemently against is maybe the wrong word. He's vehemently against Albert Einstein. He's definite. Well, it's a misunderstanding, in his opinion. Is basically the only way to put it short. So like when people are gonna base their concept off of it is a scalar this or whatever, clearly, well,
Yeah.
based off of Dan Winter's line of thinking, that means that they don't understand the science behind what they're doing because if they understood the science, they wouldn't call it a scalar wave. You know what I mean?
Okay, so it's phase conjugation. That's what he's talking about. It was
Yeah.
the
Well,
first thing that
what's
came up.
really actually happening is phase conjugates and this compression function that he talks all the time about. We talk about this in a completely different format when we talk about the idea of like the scalar waves and stuff like that. But it's misleading to think about it as this idea of a scalar wave. So he's if you really want to understand that, you need to listen to him talk about it because you're asking for
Yeah.
like it.
Here we
So
go. This is
you
a really
see
good
right
one.
there where he's
Look,
using
okay.
quote unquote scalar, right?
Right. There we
Longitudinal
go.
waves are what people measure and talk about as scalar waves. But if you understand them as the same waveform that's basically a latitudinal wave, but operating in a scalar fashion where it's getting wider, then you never understand how it properly works because it's actually this crossing with this. So if you understand just this as then getting bigger, it fucks up your understanding of what's going on. So
Yeah.
it's not actually scalar. Scalar is when you measure a longitudinal wave with a transverse wave, then
Hmm.
you can perceive what people are led to believe is a scalar function, but it is
Yeah.
not a scalar function. That's simply how the longitudinal wave works.
See, this is funny because there's so many dynamics here too. So transverse EMF. Can you see my mouse on the screen right now?
Yes.
Awesome, cool. Okay, so the transverse EMF wave, so like in water in a pipe, because I have several of his devices that he sells that do this thing with the water and coming out of tap or whatever. And so it takes this chaotic wave coming in, and then vortexes it down, obviously not to an infinitesimal point because it has to let the water molecules through and whatever to a point that is appropriate to the size of, I guess, the what's coming through, the material coming through, which is the water.
Mm-hmm.
That restructures it to actually come out in a compressed fashion or a longitudinal fashion on
Mm-hmm.
the other side, which is grown, shown to be more bioavailable and more structured water and makes plants grow better. And it's just like there's so many different functions with just structuring water. But this is, I mean, it goes beyond that too. There's just so many layers to this.
Yeah. I mean, my own personal opinion is that, like, basically, comparatively to Dan Winters, virtually no one on the planet knows anything about science.
It's so funny. It's still so amazing to me how many things where you and I overlap on things. So many people I run into the No Day in Winter stuff, and I found
Yeah.
that totally on my own, intuitive YouTube
Mhm.
journey for years. Just how just that where things connected to things, connected to things,
Yeah, I was just trying
and
to. I was basically explaining phi to someone one day, and then I was
mm,
like randomly like looking for a video to show them so that we could just like watch it. And I found
uh,
Dan Winter's video, like his old ass video on fractals, where he's younger but looks older than he does
uh-huh.
now. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
right. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's so great. But nevertheless, like, and I just like started watching that video, and I was like, holy shit, this dude is fucking next level right here. Like,
yeah.
and
No
and it was
shit,
funny
man.
because the person that I was it actually tipped me out to something that's amazing in my life. The person I was watching it with, well, like they got really fucking turned off by him using the terminology waves waving. And like they just shut off listening to him at first. And through
Mm,
them like basically
isn't that
explaining to
funny?
me and owning that they had done that, I
Yeah, yeah.
started like being much more aware of myself when I would be like somebody saying something, I'm like, that's fucking stupid. And I started
Yep.
realizing that, like, whenever I think something's fucking stupid, it means I have to go and look at it because I'm the fucking
Totally.
stupid one. Like, I'm definitely
Yeah.
the stupid one. If someone else is, like, all about it and I'm like, you're fucking stupid, it's actually got something going on for sure. So I
Yeah,
never throw that
yeah.
shit
I,
out
I think
anymore.
I've talked about it before. That was like the thing. Whenever I'd find a video or something that would offend me, or in
Mm,
some way like that, just don't want to toss it out. Fuck, I
yeah.
have to watch it. And every time I do, and there's like one time I
Fuck,
didn't
I
because I
have
just
to
didn't
watch
want
it.
to. Yeah, it's like one time I didn't because I didn't have. You don't ever have to, right? But when I know there is value in it, when I learned that early on, I'm 98% of the time I always choose to fucking go watch anyway. I always find something that's fucking profound in
Yeah.
there when I can get
Yeah.
past that shit. But still, there's sometimes like fuck it, fuck it. I know there is, but fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I've kind of pot committed to it at this point in time, just because I've just seen its power too much
Yeah.
at this point in time that I'm like I feel like it's a worse decision to not do it, even though I'm like,
No, I totally
this is
agree.
fucking stupid. I can't believe I'm going down this line. Realize like I was
I can
super
understand.
against like the whole idea of angels is a perfect example. I fucking hated like Enochian and Ophanim shit, even though I was like huge on John D,
Yeah,
huge on
really.
a lot of other people that were way into
Why
the
were you against
Enochian and
that
Ophan.
then?
I just didn't like it. I don't know,
Huh.
it's stupid.
Just like at a
It's
gut
stupid.
level?
I just fucking didn't like it. It's stupid.
Really? Interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't know that you had that dissonance with that storyline. Like,
There still is one that exists. I fucking hate fairies. I think they're stupid. Dan Winter talks about them. I'm wrong.
tell me, what do
I
you
know
mean?
I'm wrong. I've never seen them, never interacted with them, never done a goddamn thing for me. The rest of you must be idiots. But Dan Winter talks about them, and I know I'm wrong. I know
Wow,
there's something that
interesting.
I'm overlooking. I just still have not had any type of interface with it at all. It's probably
Yeah.
because I think they're fucking stupid. So why would they want to hang out with me? You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
my
you're
own
not creating
problem.
space for him.
So like I understand, and I'm still not creating space for them
Yeah.
at this moment right now. It's just how it is, you
Yeah,
know.
right?
So
It's right. That's self-awareness. That's
I've
total.
never
That's
had
great
gnomes either.
authenticity.
I'd actually kind of like to have gnomes realize like I'm a huge fan of
Yeah.
Terrence McKenna, and he talks about like these trans-dimensional machine elves. Well, a kind of
Hmm.
funny thing is that like a trans-dimensional machine elf is actually a lot more like a gnome, but an elf is actually an angel, and this whole thing comes together through Enochian and Ophanim studies. And so like now I study Enochianism and Ophanics, and but at the same time, you know, ugh,
So
ugh.
wait, so differentiate to me while you're in this grind. I love this. This is great. All right, so differentiate to me the Ophanum part. I'm not too as familiar with I'm with the Enochian much more so than the Ophanum.
I would actually have to like look up what is the definition of actually Ophanim because I just know
Yeah,
like a lot of the
is
places
that
that I
another
hang around
class of
have them
angel,
together. Uh,
like the counterpart to Enoch? or something?
I mean they look like the images that are being shown here. I've seen be images of like basically like Sephiroth or angels before, like wheels or
Yeah.
rings with a bunch of eyes on them. Have
Yeah.
you heard these things? So,
Throw it up on the
I
screen.
well, this
We
is the
both share
image
screens, bro.
that
Take
comes
turns.
up. Where the fuck am I? Where are we? Really, they're just another format of angels.
Yeah, okay. That's the Enochian, like in the in the book of Ezekiel. He sees the wings, rings within rings within rings, or wheels
Yeah,
within wheels within wheels.
yeah.
Right? That's the
So
Enochian. It's still
yeah,
Phantom.
and I think it's very possible that they're literally just like two words for the same thing.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah, sure.
So,
Two different
nevertheless,
cultures or whatever.
yeah. I
So
know
that's the
the
okay. So
groups
it's
that I
that's
hang
so
around because I'm only into this shit because of Dan Winter's groups. And Dan Winter's, they have a group, and the people that run it's like this Enochian Ophanim alchemy group. And so to
mm.
me, they are collected because there's only one place that I actually even interface with it, and it's through them, and they're linked together. So they're the fucking same thing to me.
So it's interesting. So tell me, like, what'd you like about John D? Like, when did you get like annoyed with John D that he was so into that? What about him did you appreciate? It's that part, I guess. So I'm trying to see where that differentiates. That they're not obviously not one package.
Well, I mean, if we're
Yeah.
talking, if intellect is based off of logic, and logic can be measured by how many subjects a person knows to mastery, John Dee was undoubtedly the smartest or most intelligent man to ever be alive. And so
Wow.
he was known okay. So he went to university until he had gotten a doctorate in every subject. Every subject that they taught at Oxford, he
Shit.
was a doctor.
Huh.
So he was an expert at everything. It was believed that he was the most learned man in the world, and that he was literally an expert in everything.
Wow.
Literally an expert in everything. And on top of that, he was also Elizabeth's court astrologer. He was also a secret agent, an excellent mathematician. Ended up through the work with Edward Kelly and these other things, alchemist, contacting angels, writing books people can't read, excellent warlock or witch, whatever you want to call him. All of these things, and so really, it's just John D have a very similar path to me, right? Like we're very cerebral and logical and very left brain, and we look for a very long time, and we collect a lot of fucking data out there, and then eventually at some point in time we're like we've collected the data, but we want more. And so we start like
Huh.
looking in weirder and weirder and weirder places to try and find more. And
Mm.
there's really actually only there's certain weird places to look where you actually find more. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And they're
Yeah.
basically symbolism, alchemy, esoterics, occultism, things like this. This is where you can start looking at weird shit and find more that's going like you feel like you're learning logically, but you're not doing science anymore. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of
Mm.
like John D models my path very much so. I guarantee you when John D was my age, he was like angels, you're a fucking idiot. There's no way there's angels. You're stupid. I guarantee you. I fucking guarantee you. But, right now, technically, John D is your world's foremost authority on motherfucking angels because you cannot prove that you have talked to one, and he has written an entire book channeled from them that no one knows how to read. So, yeah,
Well, now that you brought that to our awareness, can you tell us about what it says?
I mean, no one actually knows what it says.
Or what's it proposed to say? Or does anyone know?
No
Knows
one
has idea?
knows. No one
Ah,
knows. It's
boo.
it's a channeling of what his conversations, well, basically what the Enochians told him and Edward Kelly to write. John D wrote it, Edward Kelly channeled it, but the
Uh-huh.
information, the book is actually written by the Enochians according to the lore.
Uh-huh.
I think I know what
So
the book says. I think that
please
well,
share your
but I'm not
hypotheses.
I'm not gonna get all the way into it, but because
Like,
it's a long
dive
one.
in, man. This is
Um,
interesting.
I all of these men at this point in time, it was actually a very high science study, a topic called eschatology, which is the ability for basically the future to pull us into it, or it was really kind of a study of the future is what it really was. But kind of
Mm.
at the deep end of that concept was the idea that an eschaton was functionally an object that could be designed at a metaphysical space ahead of here in time that would then attract the past to it. I believe that they generated this eschaton. I believe that the Voynich manuscript is a talismanic manuscript that will be able to be read at the point of time in which we reach the eschaton that they have navigated us towards. I believe everything that happens up until then, we will believe is an action of free will, but is in fact, as the great Shakespeare said, the entire world is but a stage and all the people merely players. The end result of the play has already actually been discerned a long time ago, and we are traveling towards that eschaton, and everything that happens between here and there will be written in that book, and it will be the proof of their transdimensional alchemical creation, because this will be alchemy in a fourth school that had previously never existed, but this will be basically a world level alchemical proof. Which, if you are deep end on alchemy, you know if you don't prove it in front of everybody else without anybody else being able to tell you proved it, then no other alchemist worth his salt gives a fuck what you did. So they have to prove it. They have to prove it publicly. And the only way that they could actually prove what would be the alchemy of that space is to actually design an entirely new reality with us not recognizing that they designed it around us and then it flowed into us. And I believe they did that. I believe we live inside of it. I believe we're navigating to their eschaton. And I believe the Voynich manuscript holds all of the information of what happened between the time of John Dee and whenever we reach that eschaton. It's the story of
Wow.
now.
Beautifully said, Zach. Really,
That's
that just all of it. The
that's what
delivery,
25
cadence,
years of
intonation.
studying John Dee has led me to believe that the only thing that would have actually captured his mind enough is if he believed that he could actually design a different reality. And I think everything that he was learning and everything that he wanted to do, astrology, a study of the planets, study of symbolism, study of magic, alchemy, everything was actually working towards, well, this eschaton. I believe he already had one in his life. He basically reverse engineered his and decided to make one in a bigger form because he's doing the same thing that every alchemist does. He's seeking apotheosis, but I think he's actually capable. If I'm quite honest, I think the guy that you think is God right now, that is Jesus's father, I believe that is John Dee.
Huh. Continue,
Metatron.
please.
It's funny we start with the flower of life, we end up here. Metatron,
Yeah.
John Dee. That's John Dee. John Dee was
Mm.
the first person to model both a 5 and 6 dimensional object, it should be noted. And he did this in the 1700s. 1600s. My bad. So it wasn't realized like a 6 dimensional object was not modeled again until like the late 1990s with the Calabi-Yau manifold. But John Dee did it in 1600s. So, and it should also be noted that actually just the Enochian tables, basically, if you understand how to properly use those and how to properly decode them with a sigil de Amet, then you recognize that what you're already looking at right there is a significantly larger than 6 dimensional object, and technically he had already modeled it. So it's an infinitely dimensional object modeled that way. So yeah, John Dee was. I mean, we talk about how like Nikola Tesla was ahead of his time. Nikola Tesla
Yeah.
was a fucking idiot in comparison to John Dee.
Who else? Who else would you put on those higher lists? I mean, where people think
On those
Tesla is like
kinds of
up there,
lists
but
like
like
that,
yeah, up and around there. Yeah.
Edward Kelly's
Dan
beyond
Winter.
all of them.
Okay,
And
where Dan
everybody
Winter
thinks
be in comparison?
he died at 40 years old and is a con man, but that's probably not true because I bet you can't even find his real name. You think it's Edward Kelly. That's
Yeah.
what he wants
Huh.
you to think.
Huh.
It's definitely not his name. Little known fact. It's actually an entirely unknown fact, as far as I know. But like the good old fashioned Shakespeare that everybody likes to love right now, is Edward Kelly is either part of that industry or taught the writer how to write, one or the other. So
Hmm.
he is either the Shakespeare or he is Shakespeare's teacher. So he's probably the Shakespeare. I don't think Shakespeare was a guy. I think Shakespeare was an industry of guys. The Rosicrucians. Before they were Rosicrucians. So,
Hmm.
yeah. I don't know, man. In a certain way, I don't know. If I'm right with that, we're all in good hands. I'll tell you that. We're all in very good hands.
Hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, he said it before he died. These claims are not like just my claims. John D basically claimed all of this shit. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Interesting. A lot of new information tonight, or new layers of the same. There's a lot of interlayering going on. That's interesting.
As a matter of fact, I mean, we could also just do this thing right here, which is very interesting because we're talking about the modeling of multidimensional objects, and you started asking like, how would you model the thing beyond that? I mean, I've showed
Yeah.
this thing before, but this is just like a different context. This is John Dee's symbol or seal, and he basically signed all of his esoteric works with this seal here that I'm going to bring
Here,
up
go ahead.
in just a
Yeah.
second. I promise. I'm just
So,
making it work.
right, I got
Um,
it bigger, but yeah, go ahead, pull it up. I figured it
so
out. Sorry, guys. That looked like the flower of life
this
or the. Or,
this is a
there you
modeling
go.
of 9 dimensions. People just don't understand how it's a modeling of 9 dimensions, but it is. So he writes how it is inside of his book, The Hieroglyphic Monad. If you are
Hmm.
capable of reading it and understanding it, then you will understand.
Oh,
But
okay, okay.
if you read
So
it,
this
you
takes
likely
me.
will not understand it.
Okay, so this takes me actually back to what I think I didn't finish the thought on this earlier. I probably got on a rabbit trail. Like, so flat Earth dynamic, but the dome dynamic, but also the mirroring of the eyeball and the way things interlapped, and there's some esoteric connections to physiological connections that I was like, huh. And the way light comes in, there's other stuff by John. It's either John D or yeah, some other stuff through Dan Winter's guests he's had on that's really been prolific in that. And watched some
Mm-hmm.
things where the way he built a structure. I think maybe we talked about this before, but rebuilt the structure and the way light came in, but you had to have a piece in there that flipped it like an eyeball, and that was the only way to interpret. And it's not just upside down; it's left and right, and that's in a lot of the text. And I
Mm.
decipher a lot of text and like a lot of shit. But
These guys were next level fucking cryptographers, dude. Like
right,
super next level. It's
right.
amazing.
But it's like through your eyeball, your perception, right? And that whole
Well,
interdynamic or
the reason why
singularity
they did
within.
this is this whole concept that deeply resides really inside of alchemy, is just the idea that if I'm trying to learn about something, I should basically focus towards it as many ways as possible. So if I'm trying to understand the twisting that is the human perception, I should be purposely twisting the human perception all the time. So I play with green language, I act, I tell jokes, I mislead, I lie, I manipulate these kinds of things because I'm trying to see how perception gets shifted so that I can have a better understanding of the twisting of perception. I try and basically experiment with it constantly if that's what I'm trying to learn about. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
come at it from every angle possible. That's the alchemical way. The alchemical way is not to come at something from one angle or two or 200, but from every possible angle at the same time. Collapse on it. It's a spherical. It's a circumpunct. That is the base
yeah.
alchemical symbol. Is the circumpunct. You see it inside of John Dee's thing here, although it's
Sure.
also recognized as the sun inside of both this and inside of the symbol all the time. But really, the outside would be the alchemist. The inside is the object of its desire. The alchemist is properly circumambulated around what it wants already, and then it equally and symmetrically from all sides collapses in on it until there is no difference between the alchemist circumambulated and the topic circumambulated. So they have become one and the same, and when they become one and the same, then job's done.
Why is the cross offset? Why isn't it equal all the way around?
Define offset.
Well, it's like, sorry, it's not, the cross isn't an equal sided cross. The equal length on all four sides. It's
You're saying because the top
odd.
is shorter?
Correct. Yeah. Why
because
is it like
because
that?
there's mathematical ratios encoded inside of this thing that hold an entire different dimensionality of information. It is
Okay.
equal. You just have to interpolate the rest of it with your head and then find the ratios with the other things that you have to interpolate with your mind.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand what you're
Realize
saying.
that,
Okay.
so there, Edward Kelly wrote a poem. I've read this before on here. I'll actually just kind of like, quip it. Well, basically towards the end of it, he says functionally. If you don't take this poem and bend it with your brain, then I've said nothing, though I've actually said too much. And John Dee's symbol is very much that. Like if you look at it from face value and you go, "Oh, look, it's a mashup of astrological symbols." You got one thing, but you didn't get what he was really saying. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's kind of like at the heart of green language. If you read it at face value, then you didn't get anything of value. If you actually take it and you twist it around and change its shape, symmetrically place it on itself, look at it from different dimensions, twist it with your brain, then you will actually learn about the thing. And but just looking at anything at face value has no value whatsoever. So,
Boom, back to the nines and the sixes, bro. Spiral it all back around.
so yeah, I mean John D. Edward Kelly, William Shakespeare, Nostradamus, this whole kind of like space, which I list all of them together because they were all operating in the same functional space at the same time.
Yeah.
Pretty much an infinite rabbit hole. Dolores Cannon has done a really interesting reanalysis of the prophecies of Nostradamus based off of QHHT sessions, quantum healing hypnosis therapy sessions, where she
Yeah.
regressed clients. And, well, they weren't really clients for this specific one. They started out as a client, and then that client couldn't hang with doing the Nostradamus thing, so they bailed out, but then ended up finding another person who could tap in and was interested in really going, and went through this process of basically reanalyzing a whole bunch of stuff through connecting with Nostradamus by way of QHHT time regression. And so the very interesting stuff inside of there as well. Like the whole space is, I mean, you could spend a lifetime studying just what the fuck those guys were up to. No doubt about
Yeah.
it. And it's everywhere. It'll take you everywhere. I mean, like all over the
Interesting.
fucking place. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
God, it's so fascinating how, yeah, just so fascinating what's on the internet and what certain people attract to. And like, yeah, I think I talked about this earlier, where spheres overlap on certain
sure.
people that I never really, I don't know, different things. And then, but I'm getting through there through totally different means in other ways,
Yeah.
right? You through a lot of other materials I've never even touched on. And, other shit you probably never even touched on, just like other
That's too
shit that
much.
it was just fucking way too much. But the
Yeah.
overlapping spheres are like amazing. Like that's where you have those, connections, I guess, with people enough that we can do this podcast in this
And
way
that's
and
why
whatever.
reality is made like this thing that we have on the screen. Any one of
Yeah.
those circles, when I become whole inside of myself and I have seen everything I could ever possibly see, I am not the outside circle. I am one circle. And only by
Mm.
overlapping me with many, many other experiences would you ever get any type of understanding of a totality of reality. It is absolutely impossible for one separated perspective to go through the whole of unified data. That's fucking retarded. If you think that that's
Mm.
possible, you don't understand infinity. Thus, you do not understand unity because unity is infinity. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
And so you're fucking twisted
It's
about
funny.
how all of that operates.
The one I'm thinking of just came to mind is when, like, if you pointed out that you were really thankful that I told you about that study about Rap Park City.
Yeah.
Remember? Like I was like, cool, man. I'm glad that I had this random piece of information that came to mind. And you're like, fuck, man. Thank you for telling me about that shit. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Because it is like I remember I've watched it the first few times. I'm like, fuck, man. I fucking knew it.
Yeah.
And like you put the science to it. Yeah.
Yeah. All of the stuff that we do to hurt ourselves basically is whether it be eating wrong, not working out enough, self-sabotaging, smoking cigarettes, slamming heroin, it doesn't matter. All of those
Right.
things are all a fucking byproduct of us not actually feeling safe, comfortable, and enjoying our life and having
Yeah.
basically the base things that we need. If we had the base things that we need and they were like a guarantee, we weren't in famine of them, a totally different world exists here. Now, here's the kicker, ladies and
Dude,
gentlemen. If you think
that
this
would resolve
abundant
my
reality is
threat.
even close to famine for anyone in it, I suggest you fucking be a lot more scared when you go to sleep tonight. Because if you're going to sleep tonight, guaranteeing in your mind that you're waking up tomorrow, know that you live in a place of entitlement. It's a fucking gift to be up right now, and it's a gift to wake up tomorrow. So if you think you woke up tomorrow, but you live in a land of famine, mm-mm. If you woke up, it's abundance.
Mm.
I'm going to leave with that. That's such a good closing statement.
Yeah, let's do
Always
it.
recognize that if you are here in this consensus reality, you are in a collapse of abundance. This is the place where everything collapses into one thing. and you live in the middle of it, and you live in the middle of it, still being able to think that you are separated, the place that you're seeking for enlightenment is right here, man. Like we're already in the place. We're just
Mm,
still carrying our sickness from the other side of the river.
yeah.
We need to put it down.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I love you guys.
I
Think
concur.
positive things, but don't say positive vibes only. Appreciate the negative vibes too, because they're part of the totality. And we want all of these things. The more that we can
Mm,
embrace everything, the more that we get towards that place of unity, and we don't have to live in famine anymore. So we don't want to live
yeah.
in famine. Famine is bad.
Yeah.
Haha, duality. Famine is actually a misperception of abundance, if we're going to be entirely clear about it. And when you think you have nothing, that's a space where you know you have everything, but you know you're not grabbing it. So instead, you sabotage yourself and tell yourself that you live in a place where it's very difficult to get things. Not true. Not difficult to get things. In fact, they can be manifested without ever actually lifting any fingers if you allow yourself to. So, yeah. Anyways,
Sex on fire.
I love you
Shooting
guys.
that three pointer.
I am permanently on fire. I am the Ignis. So, yeah, it's
Shooting that three
always on
pointer.
fire.
Back on
Always on fire.
PS2, whatever it was, you shoot or Super
He's on
Nintendo, man.
fire.
You
Yeah,
shoot
that
three in a row,
NBA
and
Jam,
it
dude. I
set.
love that
Yeah,
shit.
it set the net on fire, man. You know what I'm talking about?
Start doing quadruple front flip dunks from like 3/4 court and shit, dude. So
Yeah, man.
good.
That's you. It's like I'm out, man. I'm out, man. One more three.
Yeah,
Set it
it's
on
so
fire. I'm
good.
out.
He's
Zach's
on
on fire.
fire.
Awesome.
Boom shakalaka.
That's
I
right,
love
man.
that
Fuck
game,
yeah,
dude.
dude. I
That
love
game
that we
was
can relate on that.
amazing, man.
Yeah, it
So
was.
fucking amazing. I used to
That
play
was
that
when I
shit
go
in
to.
arcades all loud and shit with a bunch of people around. Like, dude, it felt like glory days. It was so great.
I would go to friends' houses, man. We'd have like tournaments on that shit,
Oh,
man.
it's
That was
so
fucking
good.
sick.
It's
Yeah, that
so
was
good.
sweet.
Man, what a good game.
Well done,
Games
sir.
were better then.
No
Not gonna
doubt,
lie.
man. Come
Anyways,
on.
I love you guys. I'm peacing out.
Love it
I
too,
hope you have
man.
a
All
wonderful
right.
evening. And yeah, everything's wonderful if you let it be. Bye, 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 bye.
Bye.